Hello, this is Mr. Mola for lesson 9-7, solving quadratic equations by using square roots. So remember the last 3 lessons have kind of been all about the same thing. We're solving quadratics, so either by graphing, setting them equal to 0 and then factoring them, or we can just solve them like a normal problem and then end up taking really the square root of it. So remember, if I have problems like this, I'm really just taking the square root of both sides. So I have x squared, take the square root of that, I'm going to get x. 121, take the square root of that, and I'm going to get 11, or I could get negative 11 as well, because negative 11 times negative 11 is still 121. So most of the time I'm going to get 2 answers like this, so 11 and negative 11. The one time I would get 1 answer is 0, because the square root of 0 is 0. And there are times where I'm going to get no answers because there is no number that I could multiply by itself. So nothing could be plugged in for x squared that could equal a negative 49. So that's going to be a time where I'm going to get a no solution answer. Not all of them are going to be as simple as that, where it's just going to be figure out what the square root is. Some of them are going to have other steps. So here I have x squared plus 7 is equal to 7, so it says plus 7, so I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. Subtract 7, so I end up with x squared equals 0, and then back to that. Square root of 0 is 0. There are some that will end up being fractions. Remember, square root of fractions end up looking scarier than they are. It's not that bad. So I can add 49 to each side here. Add 49 to 0 here. So then I end up with 16x squared equals 49. That's 16 times x squared, so I need to divide by 16. So that'll cancel out. And I'm left with x squared equals 49 over 16. And again, you might be trying to put this in your calculator and get some funky fraction here in decimal, but remember, you're just taking the square root of the numerator and the denominator. So if you take the square root of both those, you get the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 16 is 4. So then x just equals 7 over 4. Remember, when I do have negatives, that's not going to be possible. So something like this, where I'm going to subtract 49 from both sides, then I'm going to end up with 100x squared equals negative 49. Divide by 100, yes, I will end up with negative 49 over 100. That's not going to be possible, even though we do know the square root of 49, and we do know the square root of 100. Think about what you're doing to the problem first, because you can't find the square root of negative 49 over 100. So that's going to be another one of those where it's a no solution. You will have ones where you have to estimate. So again, this would be a time where you use the calculator, where you're going to take the square root of 15, and you should know it's going to be somewhere between 3 and 4, and a lot closer to 4. So about 3.87. Remember that squiggly equal sign means about. Kind of the same thing here. You're going to end up with a not nice square root number. So add 64 to both sides. Divide by 2, you get x squared equals square root of 32, which is going to be about 5.6. And then same thing here. You subtract 90 from both sides, so you have a negative 3x squared equals 90. Let's actually do this one so we don't get lost in the conversation. So subtract 90 from both sides. And some of you were thinking, well, it's going to be a no solution because it says equals negative 90. But don't forget about that negative 3 in front of the x squared. So then if I divide by negative 3, I end up with x squared equals a positive 30. So then I just need to find out what the square root of 30 is. And I could type that into my calculator. It's going to be pretty close to the square root of 32 that we just did for the purple problem. So my guess is something around 3.4. So square root of 30 is going to be, or sorry, 5.4, not 3.4. 5.48. And then there is one problem on the homework that talks about using using square roots to find area. The book problem, I believe, is a rectangle. This is a trapezoid. it's done pretty much the same exact way. So if I had a trapezoid that my height was 2x and my bases were x and 2x, remember when I'm multiplying my exponents, I'm going to end up with an x squared in there. So 1/2 times 2x, and then in parentheses 2x plus x, so that's going to be 3x times x. So it's going to end up being 3x squared. And then divide by 3, and then square root of 2,000 is about 45. So remember, when you have length times width, and we're talking about x times x, that's not going to be 2x. That's going to end up being x squared. So remember that for your homework assignment.